Oh my God. Is it working? I think it's working. All right. Oh, a little blown. Really that blown out there? Look at that. That's not cool. Let's see if we can turn this light down just a bit. Now it looks like I'm got TV glow, but is that better? I guess so. All right. So, everybody hear me? Am I coming through loud and clear? How's my new webcam look? It's a little strange, a little bit different than the old webcam, or let's say than the old one that's mounted to my laptop. But hey, can I switch? Look at that! Oh my God! Wow, technology is crazy, and this is so much better looking. I like it. I like it. I like it. So, how are you all doing on this lovely Saturday evening? It's Saturday for me. I don't know. Well, Saturday. Saturday for all of you, mostly, unless you're in like, the future, like Australia. But it's evening for me. I don't know what it is for you, but whatever it is for you, wherever you are, hello. I hope you're having a lovely day, or morning, or evening, or whatever. Yeah, the brightness is an interesting thing. I've got the webcam actually quite low. Not the webcam. The light ring quite low in terms of the brightness, and this is actually making it look like, I don't know. I've just got my TV on or something, which I certainly don't. Uh, Turn it down a little bit more. That's crazy. This thing has got pretty decent, like, light sensitivity. All right. Well, I guess that's a little bit better. And I'm not too sure about the framing either. I mean, this thing is pretty close to me. It's like 2 feet away, but it still has this sort of longer range lens, which is interesting. So it's kind of fun to play with, kind of interesting. It's also a little bit of a learning curve because I'm used to like staring at the webcam on my computer and then being able to read your comments while I do that. But then I like look up here and then I can't see the comments that are scrolling. So it's yeah. You kind of look like a ghost, pretty white. Yeah, I mean, that's not the light doing that. That's just kind of how I naturally look. I don't go out in the sun much, and there's not a whole lot of sun in Austria right now, anyways. So, yeah. Looks as bright as the star you are. Does it still look bright? This is interesting. This is indeed interesting. Well, happy birthday, Melissa. And happy birthday, Jen. Wow, look at that. A violent emotion too, please. Well, that sounds like a troll because nobody in their right mind really wants that. Okay, well, cheers. Here's to figuring out how new technology works, and hopefully it's making our lives better. So, maybe hook up the camera and mount it to an external monitor. So, I actually mounted it to my ring light because I thought that that would um, make the lighting better. But I've got the ring light so low it doesn't even do that cool thing where you get like the ring reflection in the eye. So it's going to be a little bit of trial and error here. I like this thing. Anything's better than the crappy sort of webcam that my computer was coming with. Because I mean, my goodness, this is terrible. Wow. I mean, it's just like night and day. It's crazy. Yes, Gusser, of course. You don't really have a lot of options for what you drink here. You pretty much drink the local beer, or you don't drink beer at all. El- El- Alina sent me a Euro 99. That's very kind of you. That wasn't necessary, but I certainly appreciate it. I am indeed an artist who kind of lives off of, well, all of you guys. So I appreciate that. But if you want to really support my art, you should check out my Patreon. My Patreon's an amazing place with a lot of amazing people. We've built an amazing community there, and I am super grateful for them, especially during this pandemic, because I think without Patreon, I might be unable to pay for food, electricity, house, all that kind of good stuff. All right. What are we talking about today? I don't know. We're just kind of talking about whatever we just talk about. Um, I'm doing this just kind of spur of the moment. I didn't have anything sort of planned out. I just had a bit of time and figured it would be fun to give the new webcam a spin. So, I beg to differ about a violent emotion too. I think you're wrong, and I will tell you exactly why you are wrong. The people who say that they want a violent emotion too, they want a record that captures the same sort of emotional engagement, or let's say they want a record that resonates with them the same way that a violent emotion did. But what I think most people sort of forget is that what makes albums and the kind of moments in time that they're tied to with us, what makes them so important is really just sort of the memories that are connected to them and the feelings of nostalgia that listening to those records kind of brings up. Um, I think that in 2020, an album that is sort of firmly rooted in the era that it was created in just doesn't really make any sense. I mean, A Violent Emotion was groundbreaking for the time because it pushed the envelopes of the time. Like it took the music that was popular then and sort of expanded on it with all these other types of influences. Now, to just simply repeat that formula over again would not be creative in any way. It wouldn't be pushing any boundaries. It wouldn't be exciting at all. It would literally be like, I don't know. It's fast food. It's not fine dining, I guess. So I always try to create with the same sort of spirit that I created A Violent Emotion in, which is that I'm taking sort of the musical zeitgeist and running it through my own musical intuition and seeing if what comes out on the other side is something that resonates with people. And obviously, there's going to be creations that just totally miss the mark. I mean, I've made flop albums, I've made flop singles. It's just kind of the nature of being a creator. Um, but I think that as long as you are creating um, from a place of genuine, not just curiosity, but I think if you are creating in a way that is authentic, that even your misses will be perhaps appreciated and hopefully be the step in a right direction for something that will connect with people. So, um, yeah, that's why you don't want a violent emotion too. you're not in the same place now, probably. Certainly not. I mean, you got to imagine that I was 24 when I made that album. I'm 37 now. I certainly don't think the same way as I did back then. I certainly don't feel the same way as I did back then. And thank God for that. I mean, that's a time in my life I certainly would not want to repeat. And I'm not saying that life is perfect or it's ever perfect, but I think that, you know, we go through eras in our lives in order to learn and grow from them. And if we don't do that, then we're just sort of stagnating and not going anywhere. And I think that if I tried to make a violent emotion at 37, it would just be completely disingenuous and totally inauthentic. And people would be able to tell. I mean, if art is not genuine, if it is not authentic, people can tell. What about digging up old files and remaking older songs in 2020? I mean, I still do that actually. One of the songs that I'm finishing up this weekend is, or I should say, I don't know if I'll finish it up this weekend, but I recorded the chorus of it today. It's really funny. I wrote this song immediately after finishing A Violent Emotion and really wanted to take my songwriting and production to the next level. But I think, like with a lot of the things that I did right after A Violent Emotion, um, I was just way too ambitious. I bit off more than I could chew. I didn't know how to take the sounds that I heard in my head and manifest them into reality. So I think you get I think that is why All Beauty Destroyed was as bad as it was, because the ideas were just too big for my skill set. However, this song that didn't make it on the album was actually one of my favorites in terms of like its idea, like the sort of the foundation of this song I loved so much, and I've spent the last 10 or 11 years like trying to resurrect it in one form or another, but I just couldn't get something right. I couldn't get like the verses right, or I couldn't get the production right, or this or that. And now I'm sort of in this place where it's like the song really kind of spoke to me again in terms of its lyrical content, and I was able to sort of reinterpret that through the lens of who I am right now, and resurrect the song in a way that I feel comes across as very fresh and very innovative, even though the idea is 10 or 11 years old. So, I'm certainly doing that. I'm always doing that. However, there's not a lot of stuff from that era left over, because really what I would do back then is I would just kind of like work on 10 songs, or let's just say, I would work on songs until they were done, and then once I had 10 songs I would make an album. So it's not like I wrote 30 or 40 songs and then chose the best ones to make it onto the album, which is sort of like my new method of writing. It's just kind of, don't obsess, don't agonize, just write as quickly as you can, and then sort of throw shit at the walls and see what sticks. So I'm doing a lot of that now. um, it's something it's an approach I adopted in the last, I don't know, say 4 years. Once I set out to make Into the Black, that's the way I did it. So I started Into the Black with something like 20 songs, and then shaved it down to 10. And I think that that's really probably the best approach, not only from sort of a mental health perspective, because you're not sitting there and obsessing over 10 songs being like, these have to be the best 10 songs I've ever written. You just write 20 songs, you do your best, you finish them, and then when they're all laid out in front of you, you can be like, this is the best song and this is the best song. And then you assemble them into an album and you're like, hey, that's pretty darn good. And you release it and you move on. Ooh, where do you get the inspiration for your lyrics? Um I think I've always tried to make my music as personal as possible. Um, I try to avoid current sort of socio-political issues just because um, I feel like there are more people out there who are better equipped to comment on those things. But obviously, I don't really live in a vacuum. And so, the world that I live in kind of influences the things that I write about. And now, with a bit of, let's say, hindsight on, for example, Into the Black, like I could really feel the political influence on it, but not in the way that many people would sort of assume that political art is expressed or made. It's more or less like I realized that I was taking the things that were frustrating me about the world at that moment in time, and I found that it's very interesting to, instead of complain about the problems that you see in the world, rather to use the problems that you see in the world as a way of gaining insight into yourself. So, for example, um, like echoes, a lot of people assume is about um, me criticizing people for living in like echo chambers and being unwilling to kind of listen to other opinions or things like that. Um, but what I did actually was recognize the fact that the current trend of people information siloing and locking themselves into echo chambers was something that I was also doing. And, I was kind of like no better than the people that I was criticizing. So I really wrote that song about how that was negatively affecting me. And I tried to do it in a way where it wasn't specifically about just echo chambers and information siloing, but rather about the fact that we don't ever want to see the negative sides, the negative aspects of our own personalities. We simply want to judge and correct others. And, I'm just as guilty of this behavior as anybody. And so I wrote that song really kind of turning the magnifying glass on myself as opposed to trying to um, make a statement about other people. Alice, oh, thank you. I was unable to stick around with Patreon, but I want to support you with a tiny one time $5 donation. I appreciate that. Thank you. Cheers. Let's see here. How did you receive the new Assemblage 23 album? I've actually not listened to it. This is kind of one of the problems with the current moment, right? Like it's even though we're all at home for the most part, it feels like there is stimulation overload, right? Like there's just some stuff constantly coming at you, and you just feel honestly overwhelmed and unable to keep up with everything, which is one of the reasons why I'm very skeptical about releasing albums right now, because the way that I see it is that something comes out, it appears in your timeline for a week, 2 weeks, falls off the timeline, and you may never see it again. And that's really, really frightening for somebody like me, because Aesthetic Perfection is not a popular band, or I should say, we're not a big band. And so trying to break through that wall of noise and be noticed is very, very difficult. So I'm kind of trying to re strategize my approach for the future. I've got a whole lot of new songs that I'm very, very excited about. And I, really want to make sure that people don't miss it. And one thing that I think a lot of us sort of fail to notice is in 2020, listening to an hour's worth of new music is tough. Like with all of the distractions and things like that, I mean, it's hard to just like find an hour to sit down and try to digest that amount of times worth of new music. So I'm thinking about what can people digest right now? What can people not feel emotionally overwhelmed by the thought of trying to consume and interpret and appreciate all the things that you want people to do with art. So um, I think I've got a pretty cool plan in mind. If you're on my Patreon, you already know about it, but I certainly wanted to have kind of like a discussion with all my fans, which is what I did on Instagram and Facebook today. But I'm still pretty convinced that my approach is going to be the right one. So I'll let you all know what that is soon. uh, Best motivation for you: the fact that I'm going to die and that time is limited. I feel like as I get older, I kind of recognize that time is moving faster. When you're a kid and you think about like, oh shit, it's Monday and I gotta go to school. Friday is so far away. Like, when's the weekend gonna come? And now I wake up and it's Monday, and then I get stressed out because I'm like, holy shit, there's not enough time to complete all of the tasks and things that I want to do. So I feel really kind of inspired and motivated by the ticking clock, right? Because there's so many things that I want to do before I run out of time. Have you heard the cover of Gods and Monsters by Witch of the Veil? No, I have not. Not even the band name Witch of the Veil sounds somewhat familiar, um, but I don't know. I can't like connect it to any like single song or thing at the current moment. Is it worth checking out? You sing really well in your Oh, uh, you sing really well. I love your music videos. Thank you very much. Um, Still kind of hoping that I'm going to be able to make some music videos in the next 6 to 12 months. It's just every single plan that I seem to come up with just kind of falls apart because of new restrictions and regulations. And obviously, I understand, but it makes it very difficult to kind of make plans with other people. So we're just going to have to see how the situation develops and where we go from here. Pet Cemetery was really fun and different. Are you finding it to be popular and that it's doing well? Um, to be quite honest with you, I actually thought it would do better. I don't know really what I was hoping for, but I put a lot of time and energy into that cover, and I put a lot of time and energy into having the artwork and all of that kind of stuff. But uh, like the stats on it are doing well. Like the streaming numbers are all quite good, but I don't feel like people writing me being like, "Oh my god, I love the cover so much," which is what people usually do like when you release something new. But maybe it's just sort of like the silent majority, right? The numbers are great. I just kind of maybe expected more direct communication with people being like, "Oh, I really really liked it." But since you bring that up, I am still super stoked on the artwork, and you know that it is available as a limited edition T-shirt, which will only be available until midnight on Halloween. So if you go to, I'll put it here in the chat, store.aesthetic-perfection.net, boom, you can grab the limited edition Pet Cemetery t-shirt for another 7 days. Clock's ticking. Um, I hope you're doing well during this quarantine time. Is it hard not being able to tour? Um, yes, it certainly is uh, a big disappointment not being able to, go on the tours that we had planned on going on, right? Like the Lords of Acid tour had to get canceled, and there was a couple of other things that were in the works that we were really looking forward to. Um, but I feel really blessed to be in the position that I'm in, where I have, my Patreon supporters, which without them, it would be really, life would be very, very difficult right now. But because of them, I'm able to not really worry so much about putting food on the table, and getting back out on the road, but I can really just kind of devote my time and energy to being creative. And I certainly recognize that that I'm lucky, and not every artist is as privileged as I am to be in this position. So that fact is certainly not lost on me, and I'm very grateful for it every time I wake up in the morning. Um, but I know that touring is going to come back, and I try to be a silver lining type of guy and focus on the pros instead of the cons. And right now, I really have this unique opportunity to be able to be creative and explore a lot of different artistic directions, which are things that I've never been able to do simply because of time. Um, it's like when you're not on the road, you are supposed to be creating new music, and you have that pressure on you that new music has to be like, it's got to be a hit, and you don't have time to do cover versions, and you don't have time to experiment and try and fail and do all of these things that I think are incredibly important in the artistic development of creators. And so um, I think also because I have I don't want to say pressure, but because I feel, um, uh, I'm not finding the right word, but I'm just going to say obligated. I feel because I have, you know, Patreon supporters who really keep me going, I feel obligated to um, not waste this time, and to be sure to um, take this opportunity and make the most out of it, because I think it would be very easy to just lay around and get drunk and watch Netflix all day and feel like really bummed out that I'm unable to tour. But I'm not doing that. I'm trying to use this time wisely, and make sure that I have a lot of new music to show for it. When will the new music drop using your synth? Well, I'm assuming you're talking about the Polyvox. Again, if you are a Patreon supporter, you kind of know what I've got cooking. I've got a few things in the oven right now, which will see the light of day soon. I've probably got a big announcement coming within the next, I want to say, 4 to 6 weeks. Um, I just need to kind of work out all the kinks of what it is that I'm going to do. But I'm like really excited because I feel this renewed sense of purpose and um, motivation, because I really, really believe in um, what I'm going to be doing next year. And I'm super excited about it. And I'm just kind of getting all my ducks in a row, so to speak. And yeah, if you want to know more about that, sign up for my Patreon. um, I don't know how to answer this question. Would you ever record a song in Simlish if the Sims approached you about it? Um, I don't know. I don't know what Simlish is. Can the Sims approach me? Like, you mean the game developers or like the players? I don't really know much about The Sims. I played Sim City on PlayStation when I was a kid. Is that the same thing? Do you smoke? No. Well, I used to smoke. Smoked probably through my late teens to my mid 30s. I'm 37 now, so actually no. Well, I quit smoking 2 or 3 years ago when I was diagnosed with asthma. I had like adult onset asthma, which was kind of shocking to me, but apparently it's not as rare as I thought it was. But yeah, after having an asthma attack where it feels like you're drowning in air and you're gonna die, I didn't really find it difficult to quit smoking. So it's like my doctor was like, "You have asthma. You better stop smoking, because if you don't, it could lead to a lot more serious attacks, like the things that you've been having." And certainly didn't want that. Uh, Totally thought I was going to die a couple of times. So yeah, I stopped. Haven't really looked back. It was funny. I did stress smoke a cigarette back in March, but I didn't get more than like 3 puffs in. So it's like we all flew to LA to start the Lords of Acid tour, and this was like as the pandemic was kind of like really gearing up, and I landed on March 13th. I'll remember the date forever because that was the day that Trump announced the European travel ban. So it's like I got off the plane, I went to the car rental uh, uh, company. I rented our tour vehicle and I pulled out of the lot and I turned on the radio and they were like talking about Trump enacting a travel ban between America and Europe. And I was like, I just got off the fucking plane. Holy shit. So it's like, I'm like shaking and Joey's like, "Do you need to pull over, man?" I was like, "No, just stop fucking talking to me." And I drove to my favorite restaurant, which is not too far from LA Airport, and I got out of the car and like my hands are shaking, and I told Elliot to give me a cigarette. I was like, just give me a cigarette." He's like, "You don't smoke." I was like, "Just give me a cigarette." And I lit it up and I took 2 drags off of it, and it tasted terrible and it made me like cough, and I had like a coughing fit, and I was like, "This is disgusting." So I got rid of it. So that's my long-winded way of saying no, I don't smoke. Are you single? No, no, no. Uh, any quick advice on waveforms to get a buzzy triple oscillator? I mean, it depends on the synth that you're using. I mean, you just gotta kind of like layer square waves and detune them and distort them, and I don't know. It's sound design's hard, right? Like I think a lot of people don't really understand like how important sound design is, and I think it's something that even I didn't really fully understand super well just until like the last couple of years. You just kind of thought, "Oh yeah, I know how to make a bass sound, or I don't know how to make a lead sound or something like that." But it's like when you are trying to create a new sound that will make your production stand out, like that's hard. And um, it takes a lot of time and practice and experimentation, but I think it's worth it. Like now, it's interesting. I've been a producer for over 20 years, but like I really feel like now I'm kind of like now I feel like it clicks. Like I kind of understand how production works, which is really funny because it's like obviously you always tell yourself that. You always tell yourself, "Oh man, I know how that works." That's yeah, I get it now. But then, a couple of years later, you go, "Oh yeah, I get it. I get it. I didn't know anything a few years ago when I said that I got it, but now I get it." So I'm sure in like 5 years, if you ask me this question again, I'll be like, "Yeah, I didn't know jack shit when I was talking to you a few years ago." Um, but that's really important, and I think that constantly sort of paying focused attention to your craft and figuring out how you can be better is key. And production is just so 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 important. Um, it really it really just decides whether or not anybody's going to listen to your song. Because I was listening. This kind of goes back to the a violent emotion thing. It's like I was listening to a song by a band that I'd been listening to for 25, 30 years. This is a sort of legacy band. They've continually put out new music and toured, and they just dropped a new song. And I was like, yeah, song's cool. Song ended. Couldn't remember anything about it except that it sounded like that band. So it sounded like the same sort of um, instrumentation and production tricks and everything that they had done 25 years ago. And it just wasn't exciting anymore. Like, why would I listen to that new stuff when I could listen to the stuff that they made back when it was exciting and interesting? And I realized that, like, even if that song was great, I would never notice it because I was so bored by this kind of predictable production. And I think that making music that turns heads is really the end goal here. Like you want to make a song where the first time somebody hears it, they go, "What the fuck is that?" Will you think about doing a happy hour again with your Discord group? Yes, I would certainly want to. I think the problem really is just I don't have a lot of time. You know, I it's great because obviously like the pandemic has given me the opportunity to sort of um, follow ideas that I'd never really had the time to do before. But uh, because I'm doing all of these things, it's like I still don't have a lot of time for like sort of leisurely stuff, um, which certainly sucks because it just feels like no matter where, no matter what you do or where you are, you're always just going to be too busy. Um, but yeah, I would love to do it. I keep meaning to do it. It's just like I should just probably just put it on my calendar one of these days. But um, if you're not on our Discord group, you should certainly be on our Discord group because our Discord group is awesome. It's probably the best Discord that there is. Are you going to do more seller sessions? I certainly will, but not right now. I've kind of got my 2021 mapped out, and I think that I really need to just follow that endeavor through to the end, and then kind of see what happens on the other side. Uh, but with that said, it's like Seller Sessions was really, really great. I didn't expect people to love it as much as they did, so I'm really grateful for that. I was kind of afraid that people weren't going to like it. I thought that I was going to get a lot of hate, so I was sort of like mentally prepared to get ripped a new one because you know YouTube commenters can be pretty brutal at times. So yeah, I didn't expect it to do so well, and I had a lot of fun doing it, and I would love to do it again. But I think it's going to be something that's going to have to be further off into the future. Ooh, do I answer this question? Oh boy. Do you believe in God or are you spiritual? Okay. Um, so I grew up in a really fundament fundamentalist Christian household. So if you are American, you might know what like the 700 Club and Pat Robertson and all that kind of stuff is. And I grew up in the early 90s during the what is called the Satanic Panic, which is where sort of everyone believed that um, satanic cults were just kind of running wild and free all over America and committing, human sacrifices and raping cattle and all this kind of stuff. And it was pretty wild, like, growing up, um, being told these stories, like, when you're really young. And my grandmother, she would perform exorcisms on me pretty regularly. It was bananas. But yeah, so that all kind of like left a really bad taste in my mouth when it comes to religion. And so when I got older, like I rebelled heavily, and um, I got really into what do they call it? They had a word for it, or like a phrase for it. It was like new atheism or whatever you want to call it. Um, like Richard Dawkins and Sam Harris and all that kind of stuff. And I got really, really into that. And I became very, very aggressively anti-religious, anti-theistic. And after a while, I sort of kind of realized that, or maybe I kind of came to the conclusion that I think spirituality and religion is something that is kind of baked into our DNA. I think a lot of us really sort of need that, and it's kind of irrelevant whether or not it's true. So I think that as long as you are not using your worldview to oppress other people, it's not really a problem. Although I, however, still remain uh, uh, very, very atheist and very, very not religious in any way. I'm not spiritual. I don't believe in life after death. I don't believe in ghosts. I don't believe in anything like that. I hope that's a. I hope that's an answer that doesn't piss people off. Are you on some esoteric practice, paganism? No, I only pray to the god of beer. Yeah, no, no, no esotericism, none of that. I don't do any of that stuff. I literally have zero interest in it. But if you do, that's great. If it pisses them off, they should probably avoid Supernatural. I mean, Into the Black was really kind of, from a personal perspective, that record was kind of dealing with a lot of that stuff that I had gone through as a kid. I never really like faced it before, which is, kind of weird given the fact that I, made that record in my mid 30s. Um, but I think I spent a lot of time sort of telling myself that it wasn't that bad and that I didn't have any adverse, I didn't have any negative effects because of it. So, um, yeah, it's certainly a record kind of like talking about my existential dilemmas, because I think you still are left with, residual fear of hell and fear of death and sort of a desire for paradise and all of that kind of stuff, which is, of course, like things that, I think a lot of people who grew up the way I did still grapple with. And I certainly do too. I'm not like totally over it. But I feel a lot more at ease with it now than I did before I kind of wrote this record. Do you still celebrate religious holidays like Christmas and Easter and stuff? Yeah, absolutely. Like I'm actually probably the biggest fan of Christmas that ever was. Like I fucking love Christmas, and it has nothing to do with religion for me. It's like I'm all about the cultural tradition. I'm all about spending time with family, exchanging gifts, all that kind of stuff. Eating too much food, drinking too much alcohol. It's like that for me is what it's about. And I I think about even when I was a kid, like Christmas was never about the birth of Jesus for me. Christmas was about, eating with my family and opening presents and all that kind of stuff. So, And I love Christmas music too. Like I love Christmas music, love it. So yeah, I mean, I don't think that you need to be religious to enjoy religious holidays, especially when they are so kind of baked into your culture, because at that point they're really just cultural holidays. They're not even like necessarily religious. Um, and in general, I think people should just practice, celebrate whatever holiday they want to. I mean, it's like we celebrate our birthdays. Our birthdays aren't even a holiday. It's literally just like a celebration of ourselves. So we should feel free to celebrate any holiday that we want, regardless of our religious affiliation or belief system or anything like that. It's like do what you want. It's all great. All right. I'm going to go in 4 minutes. So you got 4 minutes to ask me questions. Any plans to make songs related to current events, or is that too common? I did release the Lockdown single. That was back in May. That was probably the most on the nose, um, sort of momentary commentary that you're ever going to really see from me. But that was just kind of like a song that I didn't think too much about in terms of like, how is this going to age? How is this going to be, viewed in the next 20 or 30 years? I was just kind of like, hey, I'm stuck at home and I want to write a song that kind of expresses how I feel about that. Um, but I don't know if you were here earlier when I was talking about how, I realize that the songs that I write certainly reflect the current moment. They certainly reflect the zeitgeist. But I try not to do it in a way that is overly on the nose because I feel like it's important to more than being critical of others is being critical of ourselves. And I think the problems that we see in the world, the things in the world that make us unhappy, are usually reflections of the things about ourselves or our own lives that make us unhappy. And so that's why whenever I find myself like yelling at the TV or the news, like fuck that politician, or all these bullshit, whoever, it's like anything in the world that sort of makes me mad, I kind of try to stop and go, wait a minute, like, why do I feel this way? Why am I angry about this? Am I angry about this because I see these qualities sort of reflected in myself? I don't know. Maybe it's worth exploring that. Industrial Christmas album confirmed. So uh, I would absolutely love to find a way to write a Christmas song. Like, I've been thinking about it for years. I still have not sort of landed on the right way to do it, but I think that it is possible for me to write a Christmas song and have it not come across as like ridiculously cheesy. I think I can do it, but I think I need that like one idea, that one seed to make it pop off. What philosophers do you have as a big influence? I'm not super well read in philosophy or philosophers or things like that. Like I said, I got big into new atheism because it sort of like helped me process my religious trauma. But it's like I've never read Bertrand Russell, and I've never read Kant and anything like that. Um, and I don't know if I ever will. I would like to. I feel like there's just never like enough hours in the day. Um, I just sort of try to take a very general sort of humanistic view. You know, try to live by the golden rule. Uh, leave the world a better place than it was when you came into it. That sort of stuff. Very, very, very like uh, 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 very, very hallmark card platitude bullshit. But platitudes are platitudes. Let's say platitudes are as popular as they are because they actually do contain truth. I think just the problem is that People don't really realize the work that kind of goes into making those types of like platitudes, those ideas, concepts like a reality. So I just try to think about those things. So it's like I read something on a birthday card or a Hallmark card or whatever, and I think about like, why is that true? How can I use this in my own life? That type of thing. All right. Do I have time for these last two questions? Good. All right. I'm going to answer these last two questions. I'm going to go. Did your butterfly tattoo have a specific meaning for you? No. I'm not a person who actually. How do I say this? It's like tattoos don't mean anything special to me, and in the sense that I don't dissect them and go, oh, um, I, this part of the butterfly means this because of my mother, and this means that because of my grandfather, and blah blah blah. I don't really think in those terms. I'm not. Um, I'm really all about just kind of um, what's the word? Art is subjective, and I don't think that art needs to mean any one thing. I think art is better when it's a little bit vague, when it's a little bit inside the mist, and people have the ability to decipher it for themselves. Because I believe that for example, whatever I create, sure, it has its own meaning when I created it. But as soon as I sort of release it into the world, it doesn't belong to me anymore, right? Like it belongs to whoever's consuming it. And, the way that they interpret those creations is something that I can't control. And it is entirely dependent on their experiences, it's just like it's all filtered through the lens of their perspective. And I think that that is what makes art so truly important and beautiful. And so I try to take that approach when it comes to tattoos, because the tattoos are created by another artist, right? I'm not a tattoo artist. I can't do this stuff. So I usually come up with a vague idea of something that I consider beautiful, and I take it to a tattoo artist who I really trust, and I tell them, look, this is the basic idea. You do what you want with it. And so far, that's worked out pretty well for me. I just kind of like having tattoos as a sort of roadmap of, who I was throughout my life and the things that I thought were cool or beautiful or nice then. Like I wouldn't get these tattoos, like these horror movie tattoos. I wouldn't get those again, but I wanted to get them when I was 20, and that's totally cool. It reminds me of who I was back then. So I'm totally cool with that. Okay, and what was the last one? Who is your favorite musician or band? It's Queen. It's always Queen. It's Queen from the beginning of time to the end of the time, or the time, all time, all time. It's Queen. All right, guys. Thank you for hanging out with me. Thank you for testing my new webcam with me. Always fun hanging out with all of you. You guys have a great Saturday or Sunday or whatever the hell it is. And yeah, cheers. Bye.